Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in 1981 in New York State, and God of Israel bless America, and now celebrating our 40th anniversary, 40 years young. I would like to welcome our viewers and listeners worldwide and our live Zoom studio audience to this evening's program in our Root and Branch Association English Language Conference and Lecture Series, broadcasting from Jerusalem, Israel, and now celebrating the start of our second quarter century. As we always do at the beginning of each program, Hakarat Tov, recognizing the good, we thank those who made possible our first quarter century. And that is the OU, Orthodox Union of America Israel Center, 22 Karen Hayesod Street, Jerusalem. Gave us a wonderful home from January 1995 through December 2020, and a little bit thereafter, and then everything was shut down for a year. I got used to using this Zoom thing, so I'm doing it from my home. And we thank three special people there at the OU Israel Center. Mr. Phil Chernovsky, Educational Director Emeritus and founder and editor-in-chief emeritus of the remarkable Torah Tidbits publication. His Eshet Chayil, Woman of Valor, Mrs. Tony Chernovsky, and the long-suffering Mrs. Itta Rachel Russick, the scheduler. And Itta Rachel keeps all the trains coming in and out of Grand Central Station without them crashing into each other and the whole place collapsing. I don't know how she does it. I would have been carried out on a stretcher a long time ago. So thank you to all of you for getting us started, our first quarter century, and now we're on to our second quarter century. Today is Monday, July 5th, 2021 in the Gregorian calendar, and the 28th day of Tammuz 5781 in the Hebrew Israelite calendar. We like to mention relevant historical dates. Asher brought this up the other day. The Farhad was, I think, July 1st through 2nd, something 1941. Down the street from where I live in the supermarket, the manager told me, and so many people here have these stories. His father was murdered in that. And we remember that. My mother's mother came from Lemberg, and from June 30th to July 2nd, 1941. After the start of Operation Barbarossa on June 22nd, 1941, the Nazi armies reached Galicia, Lemberg, and went to work right away with their Ukrainian friends in mass murdering Jews. We remember them. We remember June 5th, 1967, the first of the remarkable Six-Day War, 6 days of recreation. Probably we'll have to fight them again. I hope this time it'll be 3 days. We remember June 6, 1944, when Allied troops, primarily American, British, and Canadian, landed at Omaha and other beaches in Normandy to begin the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi Germany. We remember them all. There are so many other things to remember. I have some of them written down. Well, of course, we remember that on July 4th, 1776, wait a sec, that's my granddaughter. Okay, the Continental Congress voted, and had to be unanimous, for independence from Great Britain, and July 2nd, right, and July 4th, they signed the Declaration of Independence. A wonderful movie to see about that. It's wonderful nail polish, but I got to introduce my show. This is granddaughter number 1, Lila Alicia Talia. So a wonderful movie to see, which is Hollywood style, but it's really very good, is 1776, made in 1974, was a Broadway show starring William Daniels as the great John Adams, the driving force behind the revolution. We could use a renewal of that spirit right now in the United States, and I think it's happening. So we remember all these special, wonderful days. Now, We are broadcasting from the land of Israel, city of God, Jerusalem, Hill of the Priest. Leila, I got to gate my introduction. Hill of the Priest, Givat Hanani Abu Tur, overlooking Mount Moriah, where the third and final Israelite temple of Jerusalem will soon be under reconstruction and stand forever, as per the prophet Ezekiel's vision. Please see the biblical book of Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48. Also, with the introduction, I really found this necessary because a lot of people are confused. What do we do? Who are we? The Root and Branch Association Limited promotes faith in the God of Israel, who we believe created us all, for all the nations to honor and observe God's Noahide covenants and laws. I think the Catholic Church calls that natural law. And the reference there would be Genesis chapter 9. And if you are a Christian, please see the book of Acts in the Greek Testament. Wait a minute, Leila, I gotta do this, please. I'm on the air now. And Gallica, can you come and take her? Because you gotta go now to grandma. I gotta do this. I'm not very good at multitasking. Chapter 15 in the book of Acts, you'll find the basic Noahide laws. So, and for all to honor God's land, Torah, and people covenants with his chosen people, Israel. And that means all 12 tribes, of which what we know as the Jewish people today is a very small part. When that happens, the world's problems will, by definition, resolve themselves, including all the problems, especially right here in the land of Israel. Okay, so our speaker this evening, the host of our monthly Greek Jewry Through the Ages seminar, of which this is episode 2, is the legendary Professor Asher Matathias, Zorba the Jew. That's right, president of B'nai B'rith of the 5 towns in Long Island. And to introduce him will be my friend and colleague of many centuries, Dr. Les Glassman. That's a dentist. You need first of all, you should brush your teeth and use dental floss, and then you wouldn't have many problems. But if you didn't do that, and you need a crown or a root canal or periodonture, come to Jerusalem and see Les. I'm the loudmouth New York Jew. He's very polite, think Yiddish, dress British. That, we could, Abba Eben at the, not backwards to belligerency, but forward to peace. With that beautiful Oxford U accent. We need some more guys like that who talk like Abba Eben and think like Abba Eben. He was our foreign minister at the time of the Six-Day War. With brains and class and morals. Okay, now let's ask you to unmute over here. Turn it over to you to introduce Zorba the Jew. Les, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Lowell, and it's so kind of you. Anyway, it's the greatest honor and privilege to introduce Prof. Asher Matathias, who we've got to know over the past few months, and it's been the greatest, and from Lowell and myself, Prof, having you as part of the Root and Branch, you've just added so much to it, and it's been such a pleasure to always listen to you, and it's our great honor and privilege to have you on tonight. So I'm just going to give a short bio because your story is absolutely riveting and amazing. And we look forward to hearing it in greater detail. But you were born in December the 3rd, 1943, in a mountain cave outside Volos in Greece during the Shoah, during the Holocaust, while hiding from the Nazis. And many of your family members perished in Saloniki, which is today Thessalonica. It was the famed Sephardic community. I've been there, and it was the port was closed on Shabbos. It had a vibrant, very, very dynamic Jewish community that just was obliterated. But you'll tell us more about that. You arrived with your family in New York in January the 30th, 1956, aboard the USS Constitution. And on that train, you went on the boat, but before you went on the boat, that boat had victims that were suffered from the various earthquakes, and they also were on the boat with you coming to America as survivors from the various earthquakes. You've been involved for 55 years in various levels of public and private education, and now you're the emeritus assistant professor. You're the only Greek American immigrant survivor of the Holocaust of Greek Jewry to be nominated Republican and Liberal candidate for the Assemblyman, and that was in 1974. You're a frequent public speaker, a writer on local, national, and international topics. And you are a very, very well sought after speaker on the Holocaust Memorial at the Tolerance Center in Glen Cove. And you are a frequent participant in Names Not Numbers project and a popular speaker writer on public affairs. And you are a participant in the Lawrence Beth Shalom Cantoral Choir. You're president of the Five Towns B'nai B'rith Lodge. You are married. Baruch Hashem will be married for many more years to Anna, and that was since the 29th of August in 1970. After a 13-day courtship, I actually got engaged after 3 weeks, and people thought I was crazy. But this is after 13 days, which is absolutely unbelievable. And you are the father of 3 wonderful daughters. And at the moment, you're the grandfather of 7 grandchildren, Ken Yerbu. So, Prof, I must just mention that from both Lowell and my sides, your contribution to the Root and Branch has so enriched all our programs. Your participation, we value your input, and it's so you are so articulate and so insightful, and you just add such a tremendous flavor. And we are so privileged to have you tonight and to have you on every program. So without any further ado, our esteemed Professor Asher Matthias. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Les. Uh, I'd like to be introduced to this person that you so eloquently describe. I don't know, I don't recognize myself, but I do thank you. And you do not know how important it is to continuing adult education, the platform that you and of course the founder Lowell has made available to so many really around the world. And I appreciate it very much to be able to be in a position to contribute my way of and the dimension of the world of Greek Jewry that seems to still be an oxymoron to some people. This is the latest, if you can see, yeah, the latest CD, DVD of Names Not Numbers, interviews of the project that was started by Tova Rosenberg, and with her husband working to have 8th grade students and high schoolers complete a course of study that culminates each year with the interviewing of individual survivors of different levels. Unfortunately, they are decreasing in number. And then we have a get-together, and we have a dinner. Last year, that was foregone because of COVID, but this year we got together and we exchange our memories once more. It is part of what I feel I have to contribute to the importance of memory, lest they meaning the victims of the Holocaust, die a second time. Already they do actually die a second time when we encounter people who are negating their existence, that there were not that many people, and besides, they were not systematically killed. At any rate, I want to, this is by way of preliminaries. So we already covered quite a few aspects of the mainly sad history of Jews in Greece, except for that period of time we came to be known as the Ottoman Empire, when it invited Jews to actually come and live in their midst. I'm hesitant to think what would an independent Greek state at that time had done to the Jews of Spain exiting Spain. Would they have been forthcoming to invite Jews to come in those numbers of hundreds of thousands to settle in Greece proper? We can sort of get an inkling of the answer in the way the Greek population reacts to the desperate groups of people who are knocking on their doors, trying to escape the ravages of war, poverty, and just all kinds of ailments in the Middle East, and in Africa, by the way. I want to also parenthetically again extend a happy anniversary to my brother who is joining us and my sister-in-law. And I see that Anna, my wife, is in Greece now, and she's camera shy, but she's listening. And my sister in Los Angeles. So I have family support in this. It is, we cannot overlook the fact that it is the 245th anniversary of the American Revolution. And we celebrate as having come home. I feel I'm at home in America the way I never felt truly that while growing up in Greece. And I say that because I thought that we were accepted, only we were not. I felt that we were part of the great ethnos, the great nation of Greece. Perhaps I was born sui generis, part of the mass of Greek Jews, but that was not so. We were always considered the other. We would always had that appendix to our introduction. He is Hebreos. We were identified as the Jew. I want you I want to bring an illustration, a current illustration that my brother who follows basketball, not as much as baseball, would appreciate. There are two famous stars, African stars, Greek Africans, if you can think of that. They're Nigerian, to be specific. One of the Yoruba tribe, the other of Igbo, because the parents were of different tribes in Nigeria. But they're brothers and they are stars. One of them exceedingly so, two MVPs. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Does that name sound familiar to any of you? Antetokounmpo. Yeah.
Giannis might win the NBA championship.
That's right. That's
and
what
plus Asher,
thank you.
Plus the owners of the team are Moroccan Jews named Lassri.
Here you are.
I asked them for a donation for the Sephardic Museum in Jerusalem. They're playing not relating, but okay.
Right. They play for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, so Giannis is for Milwaukee, and who's the other one? Who's his brother?
Thanasis.
Who does he play for?
They were required to adopt Greek names. Think of that. Because they have to appear to be as pure Greek as possible. I say that not by accident. The man was born, and here is the gist of what I'm talking about. He was born in Athens. He is a natural born Greek. Yet he had to wait until he was 18, and at the cusp of fame, to be accepted as Greek with
Wait,
Greek
wait.
citizenship.
Someone wasn't, wait, someone wasn't missionized in Africa from their ancestors?
Perhaps, I don't know. But the point is, he was not accepted until that time. And he's known as the freak, the Greek freak. Can you imagine? By the Greeks. I mean, this is beyond understanding, beyond compassion. Anyway, let me retract. I already covered the fact in an earlier, and I appreciate Les's insistence that I retell the story of our miraculous survival, because it cannot be told enough times, even though it's not unique in the sense that every survivor's story is the same, yet different. My story is unique in the way every survivor's saga is, alike and different. The formula is very simple. An individual or family or minority that is demonized, as the Jews were, marginalized, as the Jews were, and persecuted sometimes, as Jews have been. That's one part. The second part, in like manner, individuals or a small circle conspicuously try to help them. And because they feel deep in their soul the moral imperative that something wrong is happening, and they do not want to associate themselves with it. The third part of the formula is against all odds for success. They chance to put their lives and their families' lives in jeopardy to protect and save the despised minority or individuals. So in this case, as I will explain, I grew up going to elementary school where Jews were not part of the curriculum. It is no different from the kind of situation that obtained in America for a while, for a long while, about our minorities. So we cannot appreciate that the critical race theory and other non-issues, in my estimation, is a step in recognizing the minorities in 1619, etc., to make America even greater than it is. And by the way, this is the best of times, even though we are going through a turmoil. A professor, Louis Menand of Harvard, and a writer for the New Yorker, has written a new book, The Free World, Art and Thought in the Cold War. And he expounds on the fact how America, after 1945, became the dominant nation and continues to be in influencing the progress of the world in every respect. Everybody wants to be like America. Nobody wants to be like the Chinese, like the Russians, like anybody but America. Yet, three things that are something that we have to confront, sadly, three things. The decline in birth rate in America today, the decline of, for the first time in our history, of our life expectancy. Again, by 8 to 9 months if you're white, close to 2 years if you're black and brown. And the decline in immigration. That could be the more lasting impact, immediate impact, because we need the vibrancy of immigrants. All of that, I say, and I transferred to Greece. Remember that Jews have been in Greece before there was a state of Greece, before there was Christianity. I already went over that. Maybe had Greece remained paganistic, Jews would have fared better. Because as I explained, the proselytizing of Paul, who was a former Jew, Saul, was not accepted by the Jews of Salonika, and they threw him out. They rejected him, and he became, of course, the arch anti-Semite that history recalls. And as Lowell has said, this went on even in Central Europe with the advent of Martin Luther and other situations in Russia and Eastern Europe. We go to the period of the revolution. Can you imagine as I monitor everything that goes on in the Greek community, last week there was a seminar of intellectuals to discuss another aspect of the Greek Revolution of 1821. Not a word was mentioned of Jews. It's incredible. It's incredible that you can have a textbook, as we had textbooks, now I know, growing up in Greece, no mention of anybody other than the heroes, so-called heroes of the Greek Revolution. Never mind the fact that 5,000 Jews were slaughtered in the Peloponnese because the revolutionaries not only straightened out the score with the Ottoman Turks, slaughtering them, they also slaughtered Jews for not being adequately in favor of the revolution. Forward to 1912 is a very critical period that will bring us to the World War II and our survival. In 1912, there were the Balkan Wars. And from the Balkan Wars, we had a kind of settlement of populations and exchange of territories. So Macedonia, the northern part of Greece, left Turkey and became Greek. Jews did not take it very well. They preferred to the status quo ante. They had a better life under the Turks for all the reasons that research indicates. Nonetheless, loyally, they adopted. The one person who made life miserable for the Jews of Salonika and of Greece was the prime minister, the man who is considered the ethnarch, the chief representative of the nation of Greece, and that's Eleftherios Venizelos. Today, that name is inescapable as you descend into the international airport in Athens. It's called Eleftherios Venizelos International Airport. One of the suggestions down the line someday would be to remove that name to rename it, because it is bitter for Jews to recall his Hellenization policies and forcing, for example, that the Jews close their businesses, open their businesses on Shabbat, the day of rest for Jews. Years later, when my father-in-law was active in Volos as a businessman, we would go to the synagogue very early in the morning, 6 o'clock, to have shacharit services, and rush to open his store at 8 o'clock with the policeman standing nearby to cite him if he did not open on time. That's the condition. They had to learn Greek. Greek was a difficult language, new language to learn, even though many of the Jews were polyglot. They knew French, for example, from the Alliance Israélite Universelle from France. And of course, they spoke Spanish, they spoke Ladino, they spoke several other languages. Italian was very common. But they had to learn Greek. Fast forward to 1940, when the invasion was masterminded of Greece by the Italians. And on October 28th, the Greeks, to this day, of course, celebrated as a famous day of Ochi. Ochi in Greek means no. And what was the no all about? A very nationalistic reaction to the demand by the Mussolini's ambassador that Greece lay down its arms and permit the Italian troops to enter from Albania. The Greek prime minister said no. Matathias, who was a dictator, said no, and he gained fame for the rest of his life, and which continues to this day, with adoring Greek segments of the population, overlooking the fact that he was a fascist himself, but stressing the fact that he was a patriot. The Greeks repulsed the Italians temporarily until the Germans came and conquered Greece. But in the wake, Phryzis was killed. Mordechai Phryzis was the highest ranking colonel in the Greek army. And he is honored, he has been honored repeatedly in formal occasions, but not really in textbooks or anything like that. And it took about 70 years until 2010 for Phryzis to have a bust, a monument erected in his home city of Khalkis. Now, in the wake, a young man named Jacob was from Trikala, but the family had moved to Volos, fell in love with a young lady from Salonika. Keep in mind that if the Jews are few, there are different categories of Judaism: Romagnot, Greek speakers, and Ladino, Spanish speakers. The last name, Rachel, was the daughter of this man, Daniel Atun. He was a restaurateur in Salonika, and had some objections to the young man because he feared that they would not be able to communicate. So he made it a condition of the betrothal that Jacob learned to speak Spanish. And of course, what is love? A passion. And this is the couple when they were engaged in 1941. In 1942 they married. On September 9th, September 9th or September 6th? September 6th, 1942. In spite of the fact that it was very risky to do that, but because they married, they were able to exit Salonika and come to live in Volos. When the troops, when the order in 1943, in the spring of 43, came for them to be rounded up, they went like almost like cattle to the slaughterhouse. Most of them obeyed the suggestion of their chief rabbi Koretz to just cooperate. They were only going to go to work, that they would be relocating and they will be coming back. In the event, they did not come back. In fact, only 1,200 of the condemned came back, and they came back to a very warm welcome by neighbors who demanded to know, why are they there? Why didn't they were they not killed? Why didn't Hitler not complete the job? This is the condition of the Jewish people after the war. But in Volos, a triumvirate of Chief Rabbi Moshe Pesach, of the Metropolitan Joachim, and a very unlikely ally in the person of the German Consul General Scheffel, Helmut Scheffel, the subject of a wonderful book by Benekos, Dimitri Benekos, a professor who has written in German and in Greek a volume about the extraordinary sacrifice and risk this man took to let the Jewish community and the Christians know of what was awaiting the Jews of Volos, and to urge Joachim, the Metropolitan, to urge his flock to protect them, to take them along. My father, Jacob, had many friends among the non-Jewish Greeks in business. And one of them was Yorgos, and of course his wife, Froso Stamos, the name Stamos, who immediately said, Yaakov, come with us. We own land in Ayos Lavrendios, and we will hide you there. The Germans were reluctant to go to the mountains, but they did, because that's where the activity was beginning of resistance and for the forthcoming communist uprising. Keep in mind that Greece was preparing, or should have prepared, maybe they did not know, but in 1945, just as the general war was over, a new war took place for 4 more years, called a civil war between the monarchists, the non-communists, and the communists who wanted to bring Greece into the satellite nations of the Soviet Union, behind the Iron Curtain. In any event, it is there that a little pregnant lady, can you be a little pregnant? Either you are or you're not. But she was a little pregnant, went into hiding, and in due course, while the news was imminent that the child would be born, there were no hospitals, no clinics. The word went out to a neighboring village to bring a midwife along, and she did arrive in time with snow very high to deliver a most beautiful baby, but undernourished, because the mother could not nurse him. So the milk, such milk that he received, was goat's milk. Try that sometime if you like. I did not like it. And to make it more palatable, she would put in some coffee to fool me. There was bread, there were olives, but the diet was very, very sparing. And that's why I got to be so tall, besides the DNA, of course. Two things influence height: your diet and your DNA. So at any rate, it was fine. This is already December of 43. Can you imagine, just months from liberation? Of course, we did not know that liberation was coming to Greece, but we were persevering. And meanwhile, the roundups continued. When the Germans took over Volos, they also gave an order for all Jews to appear in the plaza, in the square. Very few did at the time because A, they heard what happened to their co-religionists in Salonika, and B, they were able-bodied people to escape. The sick and the elderly remained, and they were rounded up. That's when the Germans began to comb the countryside, and frequently they would have some people collected because they were betrayed by their children's cries. I say that because years later, when Mom was close to closing her life chapter, her life book, she would reminisce of those days and would turn to me and say, "You know, son, you saved us all." I said, "Mom, I could not carry a rifle. I did not fight." No, you don't understand. There came a time when a German head of patrol discovered us and came into the room, and your father was not there. He was out and about. And he knew that he was dealing with Jews. He could have killed us. He could have separated us. He could have given you to somebody, to a German family perhaps, who knows, or deported us. Nothing of the sort happened. Instead, he looked down at you and smiled, recalling that he had left a child, a baby boy in Germany. And then he said, "Rouse, out, never to bother us again." This is a miracle. Call it a Hanukkah miracle. Call it an incredible expression of humanity, an expression of feeling of that something is amiss, and maybe people who should not be victimized were being victims, and he would do something with his conscience. I don't know. In any event, I did not have the Brit Milah that is due every Jewish boy, not for 8 days, but for 8 months. It was after liberation and in Volos. I don't recall the incident and the event, of course, nor the celebration, because keep in mind that I was the Bohor. The Bohor is a big deal in Greece. This is a patriarchy after all. And of course, Judaism is a kind of patriarchy, although we are evolving as a faith. So I was always the privileged one. Privileged in the sense that my father would always introduce me to his buddies as the heir, just like Prince Philip presumably introduced his heir to the throne, Prince Charles, and I was important. And I learned to speak in complete Greek sentences, and my vocabulary was transferred to English as little did I know, because I learned Greek so well, because I was present at very valuable conversations, very meaningful conversations on politics, on business, on farming. You know, my father eventually became not only a businessman in Ermou, in the every major city, every major city in Greece has Hermes. Ermou is Hermes, the god of commerce. So he attained that. It's a big deal to have a store in the main thoroughfare, in the main commercial strip of any city, and he did. He achieved that, but he still kept contact with the neighboring villages, providing them with the wherewithal that they could not buy and could not trade in their own villages. This was, they had no stores. And my father would get barter. They would bring, he would bring them whatever they needed in terms of pens and other materials, and he would be paid in grain or in chickens or in eggs. So you can just see him arriving in the local automotrice or the railroad, smelling. You know, I would go to the station to greet him and to help him out, smelling with the chickens all over. And then he would have the extra job of finding restaurants. He had several restaurants who relied on him to provide the eggs, for example, for their pastries, and the chickens and whatever else. So he created a side business of the business. And that's how life went on for a while until 1947, when the Truman Doctrine permitted a lot of help to come from America. Keep in mind that Great Britain, even though was part of the winning side, actually was so exhausted that they were about to lose not only Greece in terms of influence, but also its empire. In 1947, they lost India, the jewel of the British Empire. And of course, that's a separate story, the division with Pakistan and so on, the partition. Tragedy upon tragedy. One of the benefits of that was that aid came to America, to Greece. And I remember as a child, preteen child, going to the dock of Volos to witness an amazing sight. Huge American ships unable to berth by the port because the port was not deep enough to contain them. They would have pontoons coming with all kinds of trucks and all kinds of sailors. For the first time, I saw black sailors. I never knew that they existed outside of Africa. And they were the kindest, they were the most generous, and they were all named John. Johnny this and Johnny that. I said, everybody's named John. And they were generous. They would dispense with Hershey bars and with Lucky Strikes and Camels, of course, to the kids. And we would sell them to others per cigarette. Can you imagine? Actually, you bought in those days in the market, give me 3 cigarettes, give me 4 cigarettes. And then we will show them to the bars. They wanted some entertainment, and they would come out of them drunk sometimes, and they would want some cigarettes, and we would actually sell it to them. I said, what America, what is America, that they can afford to not only give it to us, but then to buy it from us. In the event, my father had 2 children at the time. We have Miriam and Mary, named Mary. By the way, all of us, except for me, had names that approximated Greek names. So the Miriams became Mary. The Sarah, my mother's name, Sarah, became Nina. You know, not to be too conspicuous. It is amazing. Only in retrospect do I realize what we went through and what we had to endure, something that we do not need to endure. And I revel in this. So my father was drafted again to serve in the army. And he said, no, 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 no. I have a family. I have to be excused. No, you have to go. Okay, I'll go. But I must stay with my family in the base because we need food. This was the period of famine. People actually were dropping dead, not only during the occupation, but shortly after the so-called liberation, and during the Civil War. My father, because he was somewhat learned, by the way, he only had short of high school. My mother was proud to say she was a high school graduate, but both of them were educated in several languages, for example, and they were able to speak very clearly and write. So he became the adjutant to a colonel or major on the base. He would transcribe letters, do whatever needed to be done in the office. One day, very early in his tenure, the major calls out, Jewry! Jewry. Jewry means, hey, Jew, come here. My father thought that he had misheard. Why don't you come here, Jewry? He did. Without any hesitation, he looks him in the eye. That's my father, you know. He says, you say that again, and I will report you. He began to tremble. He said, what did I say? This is common parlance. This is socially acceptable. No, sir, not anymore. And he taught him a lesson. This was also the period when Palestine was beginning to change, to become Israel. Many years later, I discovered the drama that was taking place in Lake Success in New York on November 29, 1947. This same year, 47 is a very, very important year in world history. It was also in 47 that a visiting Winston Churchill in Independence, Missouri, made that astounded speech about the world being separated by an iron curtain. So in 1947, on November 29th, a resolution was put to debate and a vote what to do with Mandate Palestine, another piece of territory that the British were forced to withdraw from. 33 nations, I like the number 3 for some reason, 33 nations voted for it. 10 nations in the young reconstituted United Nations that took over for the League of Nations abstained. 13 nations voted no, mainly the Arab and Muslim contingent. One nation, to this day, it's a dagger in my soul, in my heart. One nation, Christian and Orthodox and European, voted no. And that was our native land of Greece. The shame of this continues to this day. To this day, even after many attempts at a petition of conscience that I started, and it has been signed in 10 nations so far. And we gave it to the Greek government, and we remonstrated with the Archbishop to withdraw that vote symbolically. Great nations do that. America did that with the Japanese Americans that were detained. And of course, recently with Juneteenth, the proclamation on Independence Day. Apologize and then withdraw the vote and issue an apology to Israel symbolically and the Jewish people everywhere, so that wherever Jews live can feel proud that there is a little nation, inconsequential in the scheme of things in world affairs, really, although it thinks that nothing operates without Greece. But let them think that. But let them do the right thing, the Christian thing, the loving thing, the moral thing, so that this Greek American Jew, Zorba, could feel like dancing. I dance anyway, but I would like to feel proud of my origins. And I don't. Again, it's not, I woke up and I was singing this morning. I sing Greek songs a lot. One of them is, I put on Maroudas. Tony Maroudas was a famous and popular singer in the late 40s, early 50s. I know him because my parents used to listen to him and dance to it. And he was a romantic singer, but this could apply to Greece, the romance, the love. It says, Padu ke pada, oles tis meres, oles tis ores, katap ton ήλιο, katap ta νέφη, μέσα στις μπόρες. Και με τα μάτια μικρή μου αγαπημένη, πάντα και πάντα θα βλέπω εσένα. Means everywhere and always I will think of you in the rain, in the storms, and under the sun. That's how I feel about Greece. Even though we are apart, it's still part of me. So when I am confronted by people, Greeks, non-Jews, who said, you must hate Greece. You're Anthelinas. Anthelinas is, I said, how can you say that? I'm not there. I love Greece. It's just that Greece or its people have disappointed me. And fortunately, there are so many intellectuals, Greek, non-Jewish intellectuals, who truly sympathize, empathize, have compassion, and embrace me. That's what makes me go on. Recently, by the way, this is the boat from Piraeus to Brindisi. This is me with the gymnasium cap, in Greece. And this is my sister Rachel. My brother Daniel was born in America. He's the first product in America in 1958. When we left Greece after the earthquakes, we had to, my father had to make another choice, to come to America by plane or by boat. And he made the strategic response by boat. Said, I'll be in America for the rest of my life. What's the rush? Besides, TWA took 32 hours with several steps in those days, pre-jet period, to come to America. So we took a little Aegean, it was called, a little freighter from Piraeus to Brindisi on the coast of Italy. We crossed the Italian boot to Naples. We waited there for 3 days for this USS Constitution to arrive. It was a liberty ship during the war. And then we went to Genoa, to Algiers, to the Rock of Gibraltar to pick up other immigrants. And then to see on one side, Africa, the other side, Europe. A miracle. Then 6 days in the Atlantic. I don't recommend it in January. Suddenly, the placid waters of the Mediterranean gave way to the waves of the Atlantic. Woo, woo, woo. Every day, I would go to the captain, Capitani, Italian captain. Capitani America, he would say, Domani, Domani. This Domani never came, but he did in the sixth day. Will I see the Statue of Liberty? This is very cold. January 30th? No, it's cloudy. No, I would not believe that I'm in America until that. No, do you see the lights there? That's the Bell Parkway. So what's a Bell Parkway? That's Brooklyn, Brooklyn. What's Brooklyn? Now, suddenly, what is the power of positive thinking? I saw the outline of the Statue of Liberty and tears came down. We passed the Ellis Island. It had closed 2 years before, and we went all the way up to the Hudson River, to Pier 52, 57, by there. The INS, the Immigration Naturalization Service, came on board for one check, last checkup. My father, again, I always stood next to my father, not the Hamor, the Bohor. So listening to this exchange, the officer said, Matathias, you're in America, Americanize it. You know, you can be born again. This is 20 years before Jimmy Carter had an experience like being born again. My father unhesitantly said, and what's your name? Very proudly he said, Mizovinsky. And that's a typical American name? No, Liv Matathias. It's been in the family for generations. That's my father. But for going back a few years, but for the incidents of my father's younger brother, Moshe, who had gone to Palestine as a single fellow to give birth to Israel, we would be also with Lowell and Les this morning. What happened? He had gone braving the embargo on Jewish immigration and settled in Holon with the understanding that when things settled down, he would give us the sign to apply to come to the new state of Israel. Guess what? That sign never came because things would never settle down. He described in great detail how his wife, Sophie from Bulgaria, had almost a mental breakdown when Fedayeen, when terrorists of that time came into their property to steal their chickens and other things. They came close to being manhandled. So he said, Jacob, stay. Well, we stayed, but then the earthquakes came, and then we lived for a while. Here it is, intense. This is again my younger sister, Rachel, and my mother. And the man you see is the secretary of the Jewish community of of Volos then. He's still alive. He's now in his 90s. He cannot move very well. But we stayed there. And the Joint Distribution Committee and HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, came to inspect our condition and give us the choice of either rebuilding in Volos or coming to America. You see, again, America is the last resort. Thank God for that. This is, let me look at, yes, is this? Yes. Here is I found the passport. Do you see the five of us? This is me. This is as a teenager with a friend, Jacques, on our first visit to the Statue of Liberty. This is the Holocaust Memorial in Volos. By the way, interesting that the biggest sacrifice of Jewish life was made in Salonika, yet it took until 2014 for a monument to be erected there in Salonika, just a few years ago. And it has been repeatedly vandalized, as have been synagogues and cemeteries. Don't be surprised, because the cemetery, more than 500 years old in Salonika, was paved over to make way for the new Aristotle University. The monuments were used to pave the new buildings of the university, and any extra to beautify churches and private homes. Tell me about anti-Semitism. Oh, they tell me in the Greek community, Greek American, we're not anti-Semites, we're anti-Zionists. Oh, is that so? Do you know what Zionism is? Yes, it's this great conspiracy of controlling the world, of the bankers, of globalists, of Soros. God, I said, are you quoting from the protocols of the elders of Zion? That's a fraudulent source. And you pin everything on that? Recently, I had the opportunity of, through the intercession of a great humanitarian and Rabbi Arthur Schneier of the Park East Synagogue in Manhattan, where my daughter, Joy, has worked for more than 2 decades, a score of years, as a teacher, very celebrated and very gifted. And we have communication, the rabbi and I, and I love him dearly. So he gave to Joy a letter from the patriarch, the ecumenical patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church in Istanbul. They still call it Constantinople, by the way, even though it's been under Turkish possession since 1453. To this day, some segments of the Greek population believe that that will fall to them. While we're doing that, maybe they'll get Smyrna, which is now Izmir, and maybe other possessions of the great Alexander the Great conqueror. I don't, this is called megalomania. And megalomania breeds megali idea. Megali idea is big ideas. And the big idea was a catastrophe that visited Greece in 1922 when they lost the war and they had to accept 100,000 Greeks from Anatolia, from Asia Minor. So this patriarch, the patriarchate, Bartholomew is his name, sent a congratulatory letter, here it is, to the, here we go. This is the letter, and here's the signature, to the rabbi on his 90th birthday last year. Now he's 91. Thank God he's okay. Whereupon I read the letter and wrote a letter in turn to Rabbi Schneier, reminding him that the petition of conscience is tailored after his own foundation, appeal of conscious foundation. He has a foundation that brings all religions and leaders together to establish some kind of common path forward based on the principles of brotherhood, of Noahide laws, after all, you know. And I conclude in my comments, I conclude by saying, perhaps you can consider employing, and I quote there, your good offices, dear Rabbi, to spur progress on the twin fronts in contemporary history, Greek history, which continues to stunt its progress, not for the sake of Jews, as some conspiratorially attest on Greek media and hierarchy, but for the sake of those whose perpetuated albatross will finally be lifted. In other words, it is the Greek people in Greece that has lived with an albatross of hate, of dislike, of demonization of Jews. I repeat to them time and time again, you try that and you haven't gone very far. How about changing that? How about trying some Christian love? And philotimo. Philotimo is a Greek word they like to use a lot, but they don't live up to it. Philotimo is decency, besa, honor. It's the word besa that comes from Albania and Albanians, and they hate them. The Greeks hate the Albanians. If you want to identify the root of the crime rate in Greece, you know what they say? It's the Albanians to do it, the Albanian immigrants. So, philotimo, I said, you protest too much that you have philotimo, but you don't. Try it. Try to be more compassionate. Try to be more caring. Try to be anything and everything that apparently deficiency in education, in, what can I say, in everything. They left, many immigrants left Greece to come to for a better life. They urge America to build walls, keep everybody out. And of course, they say, we made it on our own. Why should we help anybody else? At any rate, I conclude by saying there is hope. So long as we are able to dialogue, to speak, to embrace, to exchange ideas, and in honesty. You know, it's not enough, as I mentioned about the presentation of the intellectuals last week, the panegyrics, you know, that everything is lovey-dovey, you know, that Greece was was backward until 1821. Suddenly they became a great nation. It's far from a great nation and far from democratic. I mean, it lives under democracy now. It's the longest period Greece ever had as a democracy from 1974 to today. But Greece has known civil wars, not one, not two, not three, but 4 times. Dictatorships, uprisings of all kinds. So I say, what it would have been like had those 55 to 60,000 Jewish souls survived. What kind of Greece that this would have made today. And who knows, we might still be living in Greece, the Matathias family. And I would never have known about Lowell and Les and all the rest. I hope that we can be enriched by this and embrace Greece and Greeks. It's a beautiful country. It just, as the old saying goes, if the people could improve, it would be nice. We live under a better government with Matathias, but we are far from it. He still has in the government former ministers who were formerly with the Golden Dawn. You know, I mean, they made their peace. They recanted. They even apologized for their early anti-Semitism, all to the good. But you can hardly say that that's where you're going to build a future. Thank you, Les. Thank you. I love you dearly, guys. I really mean it. You make my day.
Les is coming back in.
Well, no, I'm
ahead,
here.
yes.
Okay, I just want to, yeah. Okay, so I think, wow, Prof, that's been amazing, absolutely incredible. And as always, you know, your story, hold on. Okay, now we unmute. So Prof, your story is just unbelievable. And thank you so much for sharing, because, you know, you were there as a little boy in the caves in Volos, and you're born there, and look where you are today. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Who would have thought, you know, as a Holocaust survivor, it's just unbelievable. And I just want to mention that, you know, going to Greece, and it's really sad when you go to Athens and you go to the shore and you see, you know, what once was, and there's just remnants left behind now, and especially in Saloniki. Saloniki was closed on Shabbos, as I mentioned. The port, a lot of the workers at the port were Jewish, and it had a thriving, incredible community. Today, when I went there, we went to the Jewish old age home, and there's, I think, 4 survivors, or one, unfortunately, Mrs. Cohen passed away. I was very fortunate to meet her hours before she passed away. But
Πάντα το κάνουν. Οι πρώτοι που πάνε είναι πάντα τη Ζαλενή. Εδώ οι Κύπροι δεν κάναν τίποτα.
It's been an incredible delight.
Οι Τούρκοι από τη μεριά, ναι, οι Τούρκοι αυτό, οι Κύπροι. Οι Κύπροι από την Τουρκία που είναι μισή η Κύπρος, αυτό εννοώ. Ακριβώς, αυτό λέω. Αυτό εννοούσα. Είναι οι Τούρκοι που μένουν στην Κύπρο.
You're overheard, Anna.
Okay, I just want to mention one thing. I was with my daughter in Athens about 10 years ago, and we were there for Shabbos, and I'll never forget. The rabbi of the shul, he got up to get, there was a bar mitzvah actually in the shul, and a lot of people who weren't Jewish actually came to the shul. I think they were family, friends of the bar mitzvah boy. And as they were bringing the Torah in, people from the women's section, it's an Orthodox shul, they threw down petals. It was very special, like they threw down petals onto the Torah, and you still feel the tremendous commitment that that small community has for tradition. And then the rabbi spoke, and you know, when you hear that, it all sounds Greek. It really did sound Greek because he spoke in Greek. I didn't understand a word, but it was incredible being there, and I just feel very connected to Greece. Israel today, thank God, we have a very, very close connection to both
Cyprus and Greece. In fact, there's a fire that's raging in Cyprus, and Israeli fire planes actually went to help to douse the flight, the fires, and they're helping. And there's a very strong and warm connection between the two, between Cyprus, Greece, and Israel. But I think, Prof, you epitomize what could have been. The Jewish community was so rich, and they lost so much. And just seeing you, what you've gained and what you've achieved, just think of all those families that were destroyed, that they didn't save, what could have been. But thank God you escaped and you went to America, and it's amazing what you've achieved. And for Lowell and myself, and I will speak as well, it's been the greatest honor and privilege to always listen to you, to always hear your insights, because they really are priceless. They really are. And hearing how you survived in the Shoah, being a survivor, you must just continue to speak about your experiences and to enlighten.
I do.
And to continue what you said. You're right. It's very sad that Greece.
By the way, what you say, Les, is so true, so true. In my last visit to Athens, it was 2 years ago. Actually, this is the second year that I'm not going to Greece because of COVID and other complications. But 2 years ago, we left Volos a few days before our departure for New York, so as to spend some time with the Jewish community in Athens. And it was phenomenal, no question. Of course, everywhere you go among Jews, you feel beautiful. During the Kiddush on Shabbat, one of the leaders of the community takes me aside and said, Asher, and again, just the thought of reconstructing that brings emotion and tears to my eyes. He said, I want you to know, Asher, you are amazing. What you have, psychosis means to give encouragement. Yeah, to give encouragement to us. I said, what are you talking about? Well, we learn of your doings and of your sayings and your ambitious projects and your involvement on behalf of Greek Jews and just world Jewry, obviously, as a president of B'nai B'rith. And we feel pride. We feel proud that somebody can say things that. Listen to this. This is from a Greek leader, Greek Jewish leader. We cannot say that here. We cannot participate like that so openly. The same thing, by the way, I have a friend, a dear friend in Brooklyn from the same city of Volos, a Greek Jew, who calls me out of the clear blue, who periodically calls me. I call him to find out how the family is doing. He's now in his early 80s. And he said, Asher, I just want you to know, I received the bulletin and I received your emails. You make me so proud to know you, to know somebody from our home city is making proper waves. I don't know. I don't want to pat my back. I do it because I must do it. Did I survive for no reason? I think I survived for a reason. And part of that is to be a spokesman in my own way. I know that I ruffle some feathers occasionally, even in the Jewish, not in the organized Greek Jewish community in New York, of all places, who said, Asher, you are too outspoken, you are this, that. No. I said, listen, I did not become 77 or 70 at the time in order for me to keep quiet. Now, if not now, when? It's the old Hillel tradition. We must, if there is a wrong, we must try to right the wrong, to uplift the spirits of those who are downtrodden. That's all. It's amazing. Yesterday, a budding scholar sent me a request for some questions to answer, to participate. He's doing a PhD on local community school boards, and he went to research the New York Times, and he found one. I think I sent you the email. He found a report written in 1970 by Ivor Peterson. I remember him because he interviewed me of the New York Times. I wonder where he is now. He must be my age. He was a young reporter. In 1970, we assembled in a community forum to debate the upcoming, the first time community school board elections. And the hot issue was about busing and a few other things. Integration was still a hot issue. You know, this is years after 1954 Brown versus Board of Education. And the question was posed to me, and I said, you know, education is more than just books. Education is learning to live with others, with different others. Diversity. It's all right to have other perspectives in the class to learn. And I read this and I said, I was what, 20 something then, 29, I think, or something, 28. I said, I can say that I was proud to have those kinds of insights even then. And that's what I'm saying now. I don't want to isolate the Greek community. I don't want to condemn the Greek community, but I want them to learn, to be more embracing, to be more inclusive, to come. It's not a weakness to say we made a mistake in 1947. It's not a weakness to say that the dogma of the Greek Orthodox Church that says every morning, as the Archbishop told me, the former Archbishop of America, Demetrius, told me, he said, Professor, every morning we do matins. Matins is the morning catechism, or the morning prayers, and we recite David's Psalms. I said, I was going to say, Rabbi, I said, Your Eminence, you do that and you still have in your dogma that Jews are the perfidious Jews who crucify your Lord? No, you cannot do that. How can we have interaction? How can we be productive with each other and collaborative if I have in front of you someone who thinks me a murderer? A murderer! You got to stop that. You got to stop that. The sooner the better. It took you 2,000 years. It's now the time. Make me happy, but more than that, make yourself able to live with yourselves, with you. The rest, you know, Lowell knows the deep-seated psychological impediment that they have. You know, it's very hard, impossible perhaps, but we have to try. We have to confront that. The Catholic Church did it 60 years ago. The Catholics, by the way, there's a problem here too. The Greek Orthodox consider them heretics. When I heard that, I said, how can you so casually dismiss more than 1 billion people as not being true Christians? And you are? I asked rhetorically. Amazing. I know this is the good thing about our interaction. It asks more questions, and more questions. Yeah, this is Socratic dialogue. That's what they do not have. They have orthodoxy. You know what? Right. That's a Greek word. Orthodoxy means the right path, the only path, the only path. So how can we? I'm by definition always the other. The lesser, the lesser. Not the less, the lesser.
I have a question about food. Asher, is there a difference between Greek food and Greek Jewish food, or is the food of Jews and Greek?
No, we adopt.
Greek.
No, we adopted the cuisine of the Greeks to the extent that it can be kosher. You know, the Greeks love seafood, but in their variety of seafoods, they have everything. So we cannot, we don't. That's one thing. The other thing, of course, the cheese and meat prohibition. So if you order macaroni and macaroni, it has to be macaroni and cheese, not macaroni and meatballs.
Moussaka, sure. Moussaka, moussaka.
Heck, oh, that's my wife.
You're using non-dairy creamer when I
put
make
it on your
moussaka.
video so I can see you. Put the video.
No, it's not necessary. I'm in bed.
Okay. Anna, by the way, is a terrific chef, a terrific cook, a terrific
I'm not.
everything.
I'm
so
not.
when I take her out, you know, our
Oh my God, don't stop.
anniversary is coming, so presumably I'll take her out. We sit in a restaurant, and the chef comes to describe his goods, and my wife proceeds to tell him how to do it, and he listens in rapt attention. I said, Anna, just enjoy. You're not on now. You know, you're not cooking. She will improve everything, and she has improved me. I was even rougher, if you can believe that. She's fantastic.
I just want to mention, and then I'm going to open it up to our listeners and our viewers, the Jewish Museum in Athens that I visited a few years ago. It's in the city center. It's in a very narrow building, and it's got various floors. And it starts off, actually, it's quite incredibly done. Whoever was the architect did a phenomenal job, because it starts off with the roots. And it starts off with original tombstones and evidence of Jews that were there before Christianity got to Greece.
Yes.
And then it goes on, each floor is a different century and a different section, and then it's got a floor in the Shoah. And what's amazing about this museum, it's not the most impressive museum, it's actually a very small museum, it's in a very narrow building, but it was voted, I think, in the top 10 museums of the whole of Greece. And I think that was actually quite amazing that the Jewish Museum in Athens is one of the top 10 museums in the whole of Greece. But more impressive than this is that we have tonight somebody who is a living museum. You are a living evidence of the Jewish community that was there, and you know. So I want to open
a fossil. Les, I'm a fossil. You're right. I'm a fossil.
You're a living. You're a living. You are, you know, having survived.
My wife calls me a walking encyclopedia.
You really are, Asher, and you know, you're evidence that there were what was in the community, and how, thank God, you survived the Shoah, where very many didn't. So it's always such a privilege to listen to you. Now I want to open up to family and friends, and anybody who's listening, if anyone wants to make a comment or say something to our dear and beloved Prof. Asher Matathias. If there's anybody out there who wants to make a comment or say anything to the Prof.
Well, Rochelle is about to.
No, there's nothing else that I can add to. I was not born during this time, and my recollection of Greece, I was only 4 years old when we came to this country. My recollection of Greece is almost nil. So it's very rewarding for me to listen to these stories.
Yeah. The same thing with my brother Danny. You know, he tells me very generously, and he's here to speak for himself, but he says that he learns so much from my writings and my tales. Oh, yeah, later on today, by the way, we're going to have a debriefing. Every Monday afternoon, we get together as siblings to fill in our week highlights. So obviously, I have much to tell him usually, but now he heard it directly from me. Danny, what do you say?
You know what? Very entertaining. You know that one of my joys is indulging in history and listening to the stories that you tell are not only the story of our family, but just the amazing. World War II has always been one of my favorite topics, and because it goes directly to World War II, is always one of my favorites. It just also amazes me the salvation that our family experienced. The story, for instance, that you tell of the German soldier that happened upon Mom and you has always been one of my favorite stories. It's like in that moment, our family could have been vanquished for all time, but somehow there was divine providence that allowed us to go on. So I personally never tire of hearing your stories.
Thank you, Dan. It's amazing, and but for the accident of that summer of 1970, I might not have become the kind of authority in a fashion that I am on Greek Jews. In 1970, I was young, handsome, single, and very much eligible. And I thought I would take the summer off and visit the landmarks of my youth. And I did. I took the TWA flight to Athens. It was called then Ellinikon. Ellinikon means Greek. That's the Greek International Airport. And as I was landing, this is 3 years after the colonels had taken over a dictatorship, colonels. And as I descended, I saw emblazoned on the grass, Hellas Ellinon Christianon, Greece for Greek Christians. Ah, Gewalt, I said to myself, what am I doing here? What kind of welcome is this? I took, instead of taking a taxi to Volos, I took the railroad. It took a few extra hours, but I wanted to just breathe the fresh air and the stopovers, as I recall, the many from Volos to Athens. Getting to Volos, I was greeted by taxis. Taxis in those days were not motorized vehicles, but the kind of taxi that you find in Central Park, horse and buggy. I took that to my paternal home nearby, where my step grandmother, my late grandfather's second wife, greeted me excitedly. And we talking to the second day. On the third day, said, there is a young lady I want you to meet. You don't want to stay with this old lady all the time. I didn't want to say no to her. I said, okay, let's. So I took her by the hand, got some pastries, and we walked over to the house of this Frances family. I knocked at the door opens, and I see a young lady. I said, oh, you are the famous Anna I heard so much about. She turns crimson, I said, yes, please, come in. I was introduced to her father, her mother, and her younger brother, who now also lives in New York, but now is in Volos. And we started talking, but I stopped talking after a while because they knew everything about me. It turns out that they took my father's store when we left for New York 14 years before. I mean, coincidence. And now, so they wanted to know how we're doing, etc. After a while, I looked at her and I said, Anna, how would you like to take a little walk? She looks around for approval. Go, go, my daughter. We start walking down the street, singing, do, 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 do. Suddenly, I look over my shoulder. I see Papa, Mama, and kid brother just a few paces behind us. I said, that's funny. We want to take a walk. They're taking a walk. We go to a nearby restaurant or cafe, and I see them at the other end of the room. I said, that's funny. We want to take some refreshments there. It turns out that this is 1970, again, patriarchy. They did not have the courage to tell me that I needed that she needed a chaperone to go out with with a young man who is not her husband or her brother. So to make a long story short, the following day I go to the store. I see her working behind the counter. I say, how do you like to go for a swim? No, 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 I have to work. I say, I'll arrange that. I go to her father. Yes, yes, go, 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 go. So we go, we have a luncheon, we swim. That evening, I made an offer. She did not refuse. 48 hours later, we were engaged. The following Shabbat, we were married. And it was covered by the two Volos dailies because they never saw a wedding before. And there were hundreds of people watching. Oh, let me see if I have, I may have so, no, I don't have it here. So we went, no, instead I have my parents, where is it? My parents' wedding. This is the new Archbishop of America. Elpidophoros is his name. Elpidophoros means the bearer of hope. And I want to see what kind of hope. And then we went to Xenia Hotel. Xenia is the top-rated hotel in Volos for the reception. Not hundreds of people. They were at the ceremony, but there it was on. And the music was live. It's called Pickup. Pickup is the recording. So we had the long playing records, playing music. That was it. And by 11 o'clock, according to the colonels, everybody had to stop, had to be home. So we went home. Then it was the problem of coming to America. We had to do the papers. So we go to, and that's how we spend honeymoon. We go to Athens and to the Minister of the Interior, and we see people trembling to have the hearing. This is again a dictatorship. When my turn comes, I walk up. I said, look, a funny thing happened while I was visiting Greece. I got married. So I need exit papers for my wife. They look at the application. Everything seems to be in order. We'll get around to it in 6 months. What? In America, he stops me in mid-sentence. You're not in America. As I exit, her father was with us, said to me, what happened? Did you give him a little
tip. Pourboire.
A little gift, a little graft. I said, no, I did not.
Philodorima, it's called.
Philodorima, yeah. I said, no. First of all, I would not as unprincipled, but second, supposing something went awry and I found myself in the boondocks here. No, 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 no. I bored, Anna had tears in her eyes, I think, to see me depart. But I went on the airplane, and there I had a brainstorm. I said, don't worry, Anna, you'll be with me before too long. While flying, I take out a piece of paper. I wish I had the original with me. And I write to Senator Jacob K. Javits of blessed memory, the Jewish senator from New York State. Dear Senator Javits, you know, again, a funny thing happened to me. I'm a Greek Jew. I come to Athens and I marry. You know, there is a situation here. I don't want to wait 6 months for my wife to come. As I land, I put, I don't know, in those days, 5 or 10 or 15 cents. And I deposited, not knowing how this will turn out. Well, the best of everything. What happened? It goes to Washington, D.C. He gets the letter. He calls the State Department. Listen to he became a cause célèbre. He calls the State Department. The State Department calls our ambassador to Athens. Tasca was his name. Henry Tasca, maybe of blessed memory. I haven't heard of it. Tasca sends a telegram. Dear Mrs. Matathias, come to Athens to the American Embassy to receive whatever you need. And on October 3rd, 1970, Erev Yom Kippur, she lands in New York in Kennedy Airport. She kisses the ground, even though it was dirty with oil. And she says, God bless America. And that's another miracle, another miracle.
It is, that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Asher, Lal just mentioned that we have to end, but you know what? This is just the beginning. This is the beginning because we're going to continue in our next.
I have themes for next time. Yeah.
Wonderful, and it would be so wonderful if the family could join because
yes,
it's just riveting. Your stories are really riveting, and they are so special and so unique, and we love hearing from you. So, and what a way to end! What a way to end! What a miracle! Only Asher could do this. Unbelievable! Wow. Yeah, it's really amazing, really. But we really want to thank you so much, Asher. Really,
thank you.
I meant every word that I said, and you know, the monument is there in Athens, but you are a living, walking encyclopedia, and you are a walking example of Jewish, a Jewish Greek, Zorba the Jew, and we are, and you know, it's just, we have the great schut, the great honor that you are part of our root and branch. So
thank you.
I want to thank you so very much, and we look forward to our next meeting. It's going to be a monthly one. And Lowell, I want to thank you for organizing this, because Lowell is, it's amazing what Lowell's done. And
Lowell, today you were a little quiet.
But we want to thank everybody for joining, and we're really grateful. And we want to just wish you all a Shavuot Tov and all the very, very
Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov. Shavuot Tov. Shavuot Tov.
God bless everyone.
Bye.